If prepping is about reacting to danger and homesteading is about living in resilience, the Prep-Steader phase is the bridge between the two. Prep-steading isn't an end, it's the pivot. It's where people begin living their preparedness, not just planning for emergencies. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Grumpy Acres. And tonight, if you haven't been able to figure it out, the topic is about the prep-steading phase. We did the prepper phase last time, and we'll do the homestead phase next time. But today, we're going to talk about that pivot point. And listen, if you're not a subscriber already, make it to the end of the video and subscribe if you like it. We'd love for you to join us on this journey towards a life done free. All right. First, let me say hi to everybody. Gregory was on time tonight. Len's here. Barbara S. Hogs, good to see everybody. Just remember, people, if you are in chat, that you want to be in the live chat and not the top chat. Okay, so here's the objectives tonight, guys. Number one, we're going to explain why the Prep-Steader phase is a transitional phase. We're going to highlight the key characteristics of this stage. We're going to identify its strengths and challenges, and then we're going to offer guidance and encouragement to progress toward long-term resilience. You guys ready to go? All right. First thing first, what is a Prep-Steader? A Prep-Steader blends the mindset of a prepper with the lifestyle of a homesteader. They still stockpile, but they also start producing. They still worry, but are learning to build confidence through the skills and systems. Okay, where they fall in the continuum. So you've got the prepper, you got the Prep-Steader, and then you've got the homesteader. And then there's a fourth one that is the secret end goal of the continuum. Okay. All righty. So section 2, number 2, the characteristics of the Prep-Steader. And guys, listen, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them into the chat. I'll be more than happy to address them. I don't know how long this video is going to go. It's supposed to be 15 to 20 minutes, but sometimes we run through it faster. Sometimes we run through it slower. All right, so here's some of the characteristics of the Prep-Steader. Partial production. They've got a backyard garden. They maybe have some chickens or rabbits, some small livestock. They start learning how to do food preservation, the more advanced topics like freezing, canning, and dehydrating. But they still rely on outside systems for staples, animal feed, fuel, medications. And these are all things that we do here at Grumpy Acres Farm all the time. We are still really reliant on outside systems, more so than we were at the old place. This is one of the things that we need to be cognizant of. It's okay to backslide a little bit. Don't feel like you're losing the battle if you have to take a step back and start relying on outside systems more. The next thing that they do is they start to develop systems. You start doing rainwater collection. You start doing off-grid cooking or backup heat. You start using root cellars, solar, composting toilets. Maybe experimental to begin with, but eventually you start using it more and more. The first thing I did, we were actually living in a suburban neighborhood on a quarter-acre lot. And one of the first things I did was I got an IBC tote and I started collecting rainwater. That was the very first infrastructure system that I put in. I started a garden. I turned the backyard into a 1,000 square foot garden, started raising rabbits, started raising quail, started doing all this other stuff, experimented with hydroponics. And so the Prep-Steader phase, this is one of the really exciting things about it is the skills that you start acquiring. And that's something you start doing. You start getting skill acquisitions. That's the third thing. You start learning intentionally, right? It's not crisis driven. You're not learning how to do something because of crisis. You're learning how to do something beforehand. Hey, Homestead twins. Listen to while you're finishing up chores. That's good deal. Good deal. Often a lot of these skills are self-taught or learned via YouTube University books or classes. I constantly talk about, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I constantly talk about the Homestead library and building a library that has a lot of information that you need, because there's no guarantee that YouTube or electronic sources are going to be around. Some of the examples. One of the first things that we learned to do was make sourdough. Actually, it started out with friendship bread, and then we moved to sourdough. Started learning first aid, started doing seed saving and looking at herbal remedies. That's how the comfrey salve that Angela makes, that's how that came about, because she was experimenting with the herbal remedies. And the last thing, and this one's probably the most important, mindset shift. You and preppers are not going to like it when I say this, but this is true. Prepping is fear driven. Every single person out there has what I like to call a pet fear. And whatever it is, to some people, your pet fear may seem really ridiculous. To other people, it may make complete sense. But that's the one thing that drives you to start prepping and start living the preparedness lifestyle. And it's based on fear, and that's a good thing because it keeps us alive. But once you start moving into the prep starter phase, you start becoming more focused, and you start looking at the systems that you need to stay alive. And the systems that we need here in Northeast Kansas are different than what we needed in Missouri, and it's way different than, say, Colorado or Arizona. So it's the systems are really dependent on where you are. And here's something else. This is going to sound really dumb, but this is true. And put it in the chat if you agree with this. Once you start getting into prep steading and you start learning this stuff, you start to really enjoy the lifestyle. You find enjoyment out of it. You find enjoyment out of going and watching your chickens that you're getting eggs from. You enjoy going out and interacting with the animals. My kids used to make fun of me. And again, this was on the suburban lot. My kids used to make fun of me because I'd be out in the garden, and I'd take a handful of soil and I'd just sniff it, and I would enjoy the aroma of the living soil. All right, now let's talk about some of the strengths and vulnerabilities of the prep steading phase, because every phase has its positives and its negatives, right? Prepping allows you to pivot really quickly. Homestead, you're kind of more slow motion in the way you can react to stuff. So here's some of the strengths of the prep steading phase. Practical progress is being made. This is the point. This is when you're stacking food and you're doing all this other stuff in the prepper phase. Sometimes it can feel like you're spinning your wheels, because you can see the food stacking and all that, but it's still, you're just stacking food, maybe get some new skills. When you enter the prep steading phase, your horizons expand and you start getting more practical experience and practical progress in all sorts of different fields. When you're in the prepping phase, you're concerned about those 5 basic survival ones. But once you get into the prep steader phase, it opens up all the rest of the aspects of preparedness that you can deal with. And the next thing is building community. And this is when it often starts. Now, you could argue that a Prepper Mag mutual assistant group is a community in a sense, but it's not the same as a homesteading community. You start doing things like bartering and having barter towns like we have at Midwest Preparedness Festival. You start forming different groups. Like we've got the 3 of us here. We've got we call ourselves, I call us the permaculture team, but we're going out and we're walking people's properties and showing them or giving them ideas about what their property can become. The next thing, self-awareness. You become really aware of how dependent you are on the system. One of the videos I did back about a year ago was I talked about control points within the food system and how vulnerable it is to being taken control of by somebody that doesn't have your best interest in mind, or by chaos, just something happened naturally. Yeah, Gregory says they enjoy taking side by side drives across the pasture, looking at the cows and calves and all the other wildlife. Absolutely. That's one of the things you start learning whenever you get in the prep steading phase. You start doing more and more permaculture-esque things and becoming in tune with the world around you is a key component of that, because you want to learn how it operates, and you start fostering that idea in the prep steading phase. All right, now since we talked about the strengths, now let's talk about the vulnerabilities. Okay. Well, self-awareness that you're still dependent on the system is a strength. Being dependent on the system is a vulnerability. You're dependent on the grid. The light I'm using for this video is coming off the grid. We go to the store on more than a regular basis sometimes, and Yoda just got a job that's going to help pay for getting the homestead ready to go and getting it up to speed. So yeah, we are dependent. Once you start homesteading, you're deriving your income off the property. So those are big vulnerabilities. Why don't you guys in chat, while I'm going through the rest of the vulnerabilities, why don't you tell me some of the other things that we're dependent on in the Prep-Steader phase? Here's another one, and this is a huge one, and I did not suffer from it at the old property, but I suffered from it here, and that's the risk of burnout. It can become overwhelming trying to fit. You start identifying all these things you're dependent on, and you start working towards making independent systems from that, and you run the risk of burnout. And part of the burnout comes from the fact that once you start getting animals, and once you start having a big productive garden, you kind of become a slave to them. This is why it's super important to have a community, so you can get people to come watch your property and watch your animals while you're off doing something else. Now, here's another one, and I've known a lot of people that this happens to. You stall. You start feeling comfortable, and it becomes easier and easier over time to put something aside and not do it. And you're not complete. Your journey's not complete yet, but you stall there, and eventually you're going to wake up one day and go, gosh, what happened all the time? It's a huge vulnerability, but you can get over it as long as you realize that you're stalling out. And from personal experience, you're going to stall whenever you burn out. That's when it happened to me. It got to the point where I felt overwhelmed, and I was like, you know what? If the lights go out tomorrow, I'm going to be better off than 99% of the people in the United States. So I'm comfortable with it. It's not a good place to be, guys. So here's a quote that I found that I want to share with you. A stocked pantry is peace of mind. A garden is freedom. Think about that for a second. Think about the ramifications of that. After I just said you become a slave to the property, I tell you that a garden is freedom, and it really is. At the end of the day, having that garden gets you away from systems that could fail you at any given time. All right. See, Hug says that happens too. Depending on the grid and burnout is a problem, and all the needs of this place. Absolutely. I think most people will agree with you there. It's the rare person that's able to hit every single milestone on that homesteading phase. All right. So we talked about the vulnerabilities. We talked about the strengths. Let's talk about some of the strategies that we can use to move forward. Number one, inventory dependencies. I'm a huge one on this. You should do a self-evaluation. What do I still buy or rely on? Water, meds, animal feed, electricity, fuel. Make a list of what you are dependent on and how dependent are you on it. And then make a plan to reduce one dependency every quarter. Number two, learn one new skill at a time. This will help you to keep from burning out. Don't overwhelm yourself. Focus, practice, master, and repeat. It takes about 1,000 hours for you to, or I'm sorry, 100 hours for you to become a quote unquote expert in something. But if you're putting that across 10 different things at one time, it's going to take you exponentially longer because you're not going to be able to focus exactly on what you're doing. And a lot of homesteaders, a lot of prep-steaders that I know, they spread themselves too thin. I know I do it constantly, and I have to remind myself, step back and focus on one thing at a time. Lynn says that is one of the reasons people used to have so many kids. More hands to help with the work. Absolutely. Absolutely. Organize what needs to be done and make a list to cross off. Yep, absolutely. Now, we have not set it up here. That's a good idea for the dependencies and focusing. We had a whiteboard that we had up that we put projects on, and I'm a big advocate of this. We haven't done it here because, quite frankly, I lost my whiteboard. I'm not really quite sure where it is. I've got to find it. But make a list of what you're dependent on and a plan, a little short description of your plan to get rid of it. All right. Here's another one. This is a huge one. Huge one. Turn projects into habits. All right. It takes 21 days to develop a habit. It takes 3 days to lose it. So you figure out how many habits you created in your life and how many of them that you've lost because you didn't keep doing it. All right. So as an example, don't just try composting, make it part of your weekly routine. I've got a great big pile of compost out there that is in the process of being turned into healthy, productive soil. And I use the Stanford method, which is a 21-day process. And you flip it every 2 days for the first 8 days, and then every 4 days after that. And at the end of that 21 days with the proper conditions, you've got good compost. But that's a habit. In fact, I need to go out tomorrow and flip it. I'm letting it go an extra day. It's supposed to be today. I was flipping it, but we had company. The in-laws showed up and had an incident out in the pasture. So I'm going to have to do it tomorrow. All right. The next one is normalize resilient behaviors in your daily life. Start thinking about what you do on a daily basis that is beneficial towards your journey on this life done free. Up as you're traveling up the prepper homesteader continuum, what behaviors can you do that will reinforce and normalize resilience in your daily life? Checking on chicken eggs every day. If you leave the eggs out there for days on end, they're worthless to you, right? The heat may get to them, the cold may get to them, but make it a habit. Make it a habit of checking your plants every day. Nicole Sauce at Living Free in Tennessee has a fantastic thing that she does. She calls it Garden 30, and she spends 30 minutes in her garden every day just weeding or doing the little tasks that it takes to make the garden prosper. All right, here's the last one. And this is probably the biggest one in my book. And find your tribe. Join or build a community, swap needs, share tools, and learn from each other. Resilience isn't a solo sport. Guys, I talk about it constantly. Community is what's going to be the most beneficial thing to you because number one, gives you more hands. You can call a work day, people will descend on your property, and you can get more stuff done. You know, what takes one person 10 minutes will take two people 5 minutes, will take three people 3 minutes, right? The more hands you get, the more exponentially better or quicker it's done. And so go out. The one of the reasons why I tell people to go to festivals if they can is so that they can make connections. And once you make the connections, the hardest part of building a community is the initial conversation, right? So get out there and do this. And if the online community is the only thing you can do because of physical limitations or monetary limitations, then leverage it. Get into a community that does regular Discord meetings and start learning and sharing your experiences with people. All right. Now, before we end, I want to ask you guys some questions. And I'm gonna go real slow so that you guys have time to type answers into the chat. Okay, first question. What part of your life is still most dependent on external systems? Gregory already answered the electricity from the grid. You know, my thing is fuel. I've got a lot of equipment. I use the skid loader because it comes in handy. I use that mechanical advantage that we talk about to do a lot of stuff around here. So I'm dependent on fuel. We are dependent. We live way far down a dirt road or a gravel road. So we've got to do that. Yeah, Leonard's right. It's not just fuel. It's energy of all kinds. You know, it's the electricity. It's the fuel, solar power. You know, even when you've got solar, you're dependent on the equipment working, right? So the next one. Are you producing anything that could only, I'm sorry, let me read that again. Are you producing anything you could only use once or you can only buy once? So are you what's a good example of that? Oh, are you producing anything you could once only buy? It helps if I read it. Reading comprehension is a little hard tonight. So are you producing anything that you could only buy? You know, the easiest one on that one is herbs from your garden. You know, if you don't have an herb garden, you could only buy it. Another thing, in our case, milk. We're not buying milk anymore. We're bartering for it. Yeah, trim dash, exactly. Garden produce. That is probably the easiest one to mark off your list if you're not doing it. You know, but again, you have to go out and you have to do it. Okay. The third one. What system or habit have you started but not yet made a routine? Boy, that's one that takes a little introspective look right there, doesn't it? Let's see. What's the system or habit I started but have not made a routine? That's a tough one. I don't know if I can answer that one right now, guys. Can you guys answer that? I'm kind of a creature of habit, so I like having my routine, and I quite honestly I do a certain amount of things every day that make this place run, and I don't deviate it from it too much. I guess if I had to say a habit, and that would be working on infrastructure more often and finding ways to do it on a budget. That would probably be a system or a habit that I need to work on better. That's a hard one, isn't it? Go ahead. If you can't get an answer into the chat on that one, go ahead and put it in the comments after this video is over. I'd kind of like to hear what you guys say. Now, here's the good one. I like this one. Do you view preparedness as a lifestyle or just a backup plan? Is it a safety net or is it a lifestyle? That's a very simple question, and being able to answer that will tell you if you're in the prepper phase or into the prep steading phase. It's a very simple question, but there's a lot of ramifications there. Excuse me, getting a little parched. All right, coming to the end here. Yeah, same here. Len and I are kind of in the same boat here because borderline. I call it my undiagnosed OCD. Okay, we're coming to the end here, so it's time for the conclusion. All right, this is the takeaway. The Prep-Steader phase is where we go from reacting to becoming rooted, but it's not a stopping point, it's a stepping stone. Remember, you're trying to slide up that continuum as far as you can, and it's okay if you do not get all the way up into the homesteading phase. Don't feel like you're a failure. Sometimes we can reach the limitations of our abilities, and we have to realize that that's where we're going to be. Hey, Virginia, you're gonna have to go back and watch the replay because we're almost done here. Yeah, lifestyle, absolutely, lifestyle. That's what we're shooting for. You know, like I said, don't feel bad if you're not able to go any further than the prep steading phase. It's a good place to be. Prepping phase is a good phase. Prep-Steader phase is a good phase. Homesteading phase is a good phase. All right. So does anybody remember what I challenged you to do last week last time we did the prepper continuum and the preparedness continuum video? I tasked you with doing something. Do you guys remember what it was? I do, but I want to see if anybody else remembers. See if anybody spent the last 2 weeks doing what I asked. I'll wait. Well, I'm waiting for somebody to fess up that they didn't follow through with the challenge. I'm going to give you one for the next time. Oh, is that the skill you learned or you worked on, Hogs? That was the challenge. The challenge was to pick a skill and learn a skill that you were not yet proficient at. Okay, so here's the challenge. This is the challenge for this video. Pick one thing this month to replace, one system to strengthen, or one skill to learn. Make forward motion your hair. You know what? Let me start that again. All right. Pick one thing this month to replace, one system to strengthen, or one skill to learn. Make forward motion your habit, not your someday plan. Boy, my delivery on that one is just terrible, wasn't it? Yeah. One new thing, question mark. Yeah, that's, again, once you go back and watch the replay there, VR, you'll hit the burnout phase, and you'll see the comment about learning one thing at a time. Yeah, forward motion, that's the way to go. All right, listen. That's the end of the presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, if you're not a subscriber to the channel and you made it this far, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that like button. Come join us. We talk about preparedness and homesteading, all the moving parts that it takes to become free and pursue liberty. And most importantly, go out tomorrow, think about where you are in the continuum, and go live a life done free. Okay, guys, take care.
Want to make the most of your harvest? With a Harvest Right freeze dryer, you can preserve garden produce, build a reliable emergency food supply, and create healthy snacks for your family, pets, even your next camping trip. Unlike traditional methods, freeze drying retains flavor, color, and over 90% of the food's nutrients without shrinking or toughening your meals. From homesteaders to hunters, this is the ultimate food preservation tool. Ready to level up your preparedness and pantry? Click the affiliate link in the video description or scan the QR code and see why thousands are turning to freeze drying.